Are you ready to take your first steps towards financial freedom by investing in property? Whether you're a first-time investor or you've started your portfolio but need some help continuing to grow, 2022 REB Buyer's Agent of the Year and Rising Star finalist Lachlan Vidler and his team at Atlas Property Group are here to help. As experts in property investment, Lachlan and his team are ready to help you take your next step in growing your portfolio. By completing the research, sourcing and negotiations, Lachlan goes the extra mile to find you a high-performing investment property. Visit atlaspropertygroup.com.au to book in your discovery call absolutely free of charge.
This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is listening along to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm Grace Ormsby, one of the hosts behind this network. And I'm very excited because, we always are looking to talk to investors out there who are willing to share their story with us. And for some people, it is quite a private thing to go down a property investment portfolio journey. So it's always a privilege when we do get someone who reaches out and says, hey, I actually think I might be, someone who is worth talking to. And in this case, it was spurred on by a recent conversation we had with Dr. Marty Asmo. And I've got Dr. Roxanne Zolan on the line today. Roxanne, thank you so much for taking the time. I have to say, I was so excited when I saw your initial email reaching out.
Well, thanks a lot, Grace. I loved the show that you did with my colleague from QUT. We call her Asti. So
yeah, she's lovely, isn't she? She's just such a personable, warm person, Asti, isn't she?
Absolutely. And she's done amazing things. And her job now. Yeah, terrific. She was a tutor for me when I was a professor at QUT.
Amazing. And what subject was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Let me see. A couple of different subjects. I was basically in the School of Management, but I did different kinds of things,
So what are you doing with yourself now? I know we're going to get to the property investment portfolio in just a second, because I know that does keep you quite busy, but
sure.
What has your career been like today?
Well, I retired at the end of 2017. And since then, I do largely do property development. I make money out of that. But I'm volunteer for the Bribey Island Butterfly House.
Wow.
Let me promote them. Yes.
Oh, amazing. This is obviously just an audio podcast, but I've just seen a beautiful poster full of butterflies.
Yeah.
We need more butterflies in the world, don't we, Roxanne?
Oh, absolutely. They pollinate plants just the same as bees. And if you don't have butterflies around, you probably don't have a very healthy ecosystem.
No, definitely. And I could probably talk about butterflies all day, but we'll probably switch back a little bit more into the property investment line of things, because that is what everyone does tune in for. Yeah. And Roxanne, you mentioned you retired 2017, yes. So 5 years ago now. Was it always the plan to go down the property development route at that time?
No. In fact, the idea kind of hit me around about 2010 when I was working as a university professor towards the end of my career. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to save enough money by the time I retired to be able to live comfortably. And my goal was not to take Centrelink from the government because I just didn't want to. I didn't think it was right. And so I got into looking at what I had and what I could do with it. And I started property development. And like I said, it's been 5 years and it's supporting me still. I mean, I'm growing all the time.
Amazing. Was it daunting? I guess first the realization that, things were, looking forward and planning ahead for your retirement and going, hang on, I'm not going to live as I would like to be living if I don't change something now. But then as well, was it daunting to go, there are ways that I can actually achieve something here?
Well, it was a shock to realize that after working all my life and, raising my son and everything, that I really couldn't afford to retire. And even though I had a very good paying job finally, and it wasn't so daunting to think about the property development, because early in my career, when I finished my undergraduate degree, bought a house in Brisbane in West End, like 800 square meters, right, one block from the river, beautiful old Queenslander that I renovated, and eventually bought it for $32,000. And I sold it about 1990 for $150,000. So you would have thought penny would drop, that this was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, those gains even back in 1990, that would have been huge in the Brisbane market at that time, I'm imagining.
Absolutely, yes. But I got involved with my career and I forgot about property development. But when the time came that I thought about making money, I remembered that. And then I had at the time a house in Birkdale by the ocean here in Queensland, near Brisbane, that was a 2-story brick house. And upstairs was all your 3 bedrooms, bath, and all that. Downstairs was a garage and a rumpus room, but there was, the laundry and a toilet. And so I thought, I'll build a flat downstairs. So that was my first real foray into property development. I built the flat and I thought, I'll live in this beautiful new flat I've just built, but it turned out to be too small. And then I looked around and I looked at Ipswich and found an old house, big block, 800 square meter block with a real wreck, an old Queenslander that was total shambles. A swimming pool in the backyard that was green. And we were sitting on the back deck and the pergola fell down.
Oh, no.
And it was like, and I thought, yes, I will buy this house and I will renovate it.
That's good on you, because a lot of people would be very, very scared, looking at something that was in such shambles. I'm hoping you got it at a good price.
Well, I got it for $175,000. This was in, like I said, about 2011. Mm-hmm. And I renovated it I lived in it and renovated it over about 3 years. I sold it in 2014 for, I think it was $315,000. Mm-hmm. So I really made, and I probably put maximum $50,000 into it,
Okay, so was it mainly just, beautifying it as opposed to structural? No, it needed structural work.
The house itself was sound. That's what I love about the old Queenslanders. You have a look, the stumps are good, the roof is good, the gutters are good. Okay, you got something to work with here. But for example, it had been used as a place for growing marijuana. I sold all the stuff under the house, not the marijuana, but all the hydroponic stuff. And they had taken out the whole side of the veranda so the sun could get in and grow the marijuana.
Oh my gosh.
And it would have been growing all through the house, but basically, no, I didn't mess with that. I just went and bought new windows on eBay and got a builder to put them in for me.
Okay. So, it sounds like a lot of this renovation work you've done yourself with the help of obviously trades and professionals. What's that process actually been like for you? We're going to ask a few more questions around that renovation piece later on, but just talk us through your mindset when you did go into some of these renovations.
Okay, well, it starts from the time when you sort of first look at the house, even before you buy, right? So I would be looking at maybe a couple houses at a time, comparing them. And I have a spreadsheet that I use. And I put in how much does it cost to buy? How much am I thinking I can spend on it? How much am I thinking it might be worth at the end? I do the number crunching. And so that helps me, I think, make good decisions. Then by the time, when I buy it, I usually have a list of what I think needs to be done, starting with structural stuff. And you have to get rid of any of the real big negatives. So I helped a friend of mine renovate a house in Ipswich about a year ago. And it took 1.5 years to do because he was only able to work on weekends. But he had a retaining wall that was kind of leaning. And we tried to ignore it. But I knew that if we left it there when he went to sell the house, A, it would be hard to sell, and B, he'd lose a lot of money, more money than it would cost to replace the retaining wall. So what we did is, rather than pull it out and replace it, we got a new retaining wall built in front of it so that it would be secure. And it was fine. None of the buyers looking at the house even mentioned it.
No. Okay. So how much of this knowledge do you just have inside of you, Roxanne, when you're looking at these numbers going, yeah, we can spend this much money and still make money down the road? Is there anyone that you do, consult with or talk to about what some of those potential costs would be? Or do you feel yourself that you have a good understanding of that?
Well, I guess now, after all these years, 10 years or something, 12 years, I've built up that database in my head. But the thing is, I get quotes sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. I get quotes before I buy the house, because sometimes you just don't know what it's going to cost. And sometimes you goof, like I just bought a house out in Tagulwa, which is a country town. I'll tell you more about this later. But it was moved onto the block by an old guy who was about 80, and he couldn't finish the job. He either ran out of money or too old and too tired or something like that, But I have since found out that in the connecting up of the hot water system wasn't done properly. So I'm going to have to get someone in there to pull it out and redo it. But, the other thing is you got to make sure that you got enough cash in either your back pocket or in your credit card, so that if you do run into something, you're going to be able to pay for it. So this might cost me $5,000, but in the scheme of things, that's not a big deal.
Some good advice there, Roxanne. Let's go back. We've just sold the Ipswich house and made some money, the marijuana house, I will call it. So then what happened then? Obviously you build up your confidence when you have that kind of success. What did you do after that? Yeah, well, I still had the other house with the 2 flats and rented out. Mm-hmm. That was cool. I looked at the map, and that's another thing I do is I always look at, sort of areas, get to know the area. And when I came back from the States in 2007, I looked around and I wanted to go to Bribie Island because I remembered good times there. And so I thought, right, my next thing, I'm going to buy a house on Bribie Island. So I bought a house at Wirram, a old fibro beach shack that I think I paid maybe for $375. Mm-hmm. And this was 2014. And I left the Ipswich house rented. I rented the Ipswich house out. So now I had 3 houses. And only problem was the people I rented the Ipswich house to were the tenants from hell. Oh, no.
I used a real estate agent. I always use a real estate agent when I'm renting. So the problem was I rented it to this young couple with a baby, and they were so picky. Like after moving in, they changed all the locks and then asked me to pay for them. That was almost $400, right? Mm-hmm. Within less than 6 months, we were going through negotiations. I forget what it's called, the Retail Tenancy Association or something like that, with these people. They would say, the fans don't work. The fans were working, but there would be 3 speeds. It would only go 1 speed. But it's like, okay, so we'll change the fans. I bought all these fans. I don't like those fans. I don't want those. Sorry, darling, it's my house, right? I'm putting these fans in. Then she wouldn't let us in. You can't come in and do this work because of the baby. Well, excuse me. if you want the fans, I gotta come, they have to come in and do it. So that's what eventually, thank goodness, finally got rid of her. In fact, I think they wanted to move out for some reason. And never mind. It was finally got rid of them.
Water under the bridge now.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And what happened is it just bugged me so much that I put the house up and sold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, that wasn't planned. Were you hoping to hold on to that for a bit longer?
Yeah, I didn't have any plans to sell that house. But I think what I realized is that it wasn't a great rental house. So it was a great house to live in, but it wasn't a great house to rent.
And why was that?
Well, probably because of the bad experience I had with them. But I think the Queenslander houses are like all open underneath. I probably should have built in down below, but I didn't think about it. Yeah. Anyway.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? So Bribey Island, we're there now.
Yeah.
And what was the plan there?
I guess I still wasn't aggressive about property development. And I think the next thing that happened was that I actually had to go live in Adelaide and work in Adelaide. Then I bought on the island 1,000 square meter block that had roads on 3 sides, which gives you great access. Absolutely. And of course, 1,000 square meters, subdivision potential. So I got that block, rented it out, tenant from hell. Oh my gosh, did it again. Whatever, that slowed me down. But I had to, it takes time to go through all the planning permits and stuff like that. In the meantime, I went back to the first house I had and I did the subdivision there. And I built a brand new house on the block. And I put the biggest house on the smallest block. It was a 400 square meter block. And the house was 2 stories, 6 bedrooms, 3 baths, and 2-car garage. So
how come? Like what was the purpose of building such a big house?
Well, I just figured you got the land. The land is the expensive part. You put as much house on it as you can.
Fair enough.
And I mean, I always do things, I try to do things nice. Put in a nice fence, driveway, landscaping, all that kind of stuff.
And so did you rent that one out or choose to sell it? Okay.
And again, I always try to do quality. I always try to make the house so livable, that comfortable, livable house.
So was that one positively or negatively geared, Roxanne?
You know what? I don't think I do negative gearing.
Okay.
Basically, I always try to have my houses balanced so that the rental income will pay the mortgage. It may not pay for the rates and everything. It may not pay for everything, but it's got to pay the most of it.
Good to know. So
I always try to have a balanced income. And while I was working up until 2017, I had enough money that if I had to pay for something, I wouldn't be short. I could pay extra for things, expenses. But then once I retired, all I have is the income from my properties.
A bit of a different mindset there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back soon with more from Dr. Roxanne Zolan.
Ever wondered how you can invest like the top 1% of Australian property investors? Henderson Advocacy has been at the forefront of helping everyday Aussies improve their financial freedom. So if you're a savvy investor or someone just starting out on their property journey, give Henderson Advocacy a call today. Head to www.henderson.com.au. Don't invest alone. Invest smarter.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. I'm joined by Dr. Roxanne Zolan, who is now full-time. Are you full-time or do you still consider it a part-time pursuit, this property development, Roxanne?
Part-time.
Part-time. How much time do you actually need to dedicate to, improving? I know, just thinking when we were emailing back and forth, you had some things where you were like, I'm up at this property renovating all week, so I won't be able to do things. How much time does need to be dedicated to this kind of thing?
Well, in September, I sold the house at Wirral and bought 3 country properties with the money.
Yeah.
Right. And one was in Tagulwa, and that was already rented, so I didn't have to mess with that. The other one was in Nanango, and it needed some cosmetic rent because it had been rented, but nothing had been done for a long time. And then the third one was the little house that was moved on the block in Tagulwa also. So first of all, I focused on the one that needed the cosmetic so I could fix it up and get it rented. And that took me about 3 months, basically living up there in the garage, in the shed, while we renovated the house. And I have a friend, a gentleman friend, that we're kind of like partners in crime. I helped him renovate his house and sell his house in Ipswich. And since then, we've been working together. So he came up and helped me, and the two of us knocked it over in about, like I said, 3 months. And that was practically full time, really.
Okay. So it depends on the property and it depends what needs to be done to it. But because you're retired, even though you're still working, you obviously, can pick and choose the amount of time that you do put into properties.
And most of what I do is project management. And that is a skill that every property developer must know. Plan, organize, control. And have your spreadsheets.
I love that. Plan, organize, control, and have your spreadsheets. Everyone who is listening at home, write that down because I do feel like that is so important, considering the success that you've had so far, Roxanne.
Well, plan, organize, and control is the summary of project management. You plan it, you set things up, and then you make sure it actually gets you to the goal. Project management is all about how to achieve goals. I taught that. That's what I was teaching.
Amazing. So you're just putting it all into practice.
Yeah.
Did you, I know you said it wasn't something that had ever come up, but did you ever hope that you'd be able to put some of those skills that you were teaching and drilling down to all those students and going, I want to be able to actually apply them somehow?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't think like that, but I taught what I loved. And besides project management, the positive psychology was my favorite subject to teach because I was into entrepreneurship. Before I became, did my PhD and became a professor, I ran my own businesses in different things. And I always loved to teach entrepreneurship and encourage people to run their own business.
I love that. And you're still doing it now, even in retirement, and it's paying off. Because I do want to ask you at this point, and feel free if you don't want to answer it, but what's your portfolio valued at around now?
That's an interesting question. Okay, well, the house I'm living in here is worth about at least $1 million. And then the 3 houses I bought have gone up in value. The one that was rented, I bought it for $300, and now it's got to be worth at least $350 or maybe $400. The one in the Nango I bought for $212. That's got to be worth $300 now. And then the little one, when it's done, which is going to be in a couple months' time, that's going to be worth $300. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So about $2 million.
And how much of that is debt? Or needs to be serviced on the mortgage?
I don't owe any money.
You don't owe any money. Amazing.
Yeah. But the most important thing is that every house I have has rental income. So the house I'm living in, remember that block that I was on Bribey Island and subdivision and all that?
Yeah.
So what I did is I bought a removal house, which is the old Queensland style house, put it up high, and built a 2-bedroom flat downstairs. So now I live upstairs and I rent downstairs. I get $1,000 a month from that. Then the house in Tagulwa is rented for $325 or something a week. That's $1,000 a month. The Nango's rented for about the same. That's another $1,000. And when the little house comes online, that'll be that's going to be my holiday rental.
Okay.
So I'm going to Airbnb it so that when it's not rented out, we can go up there and enjoy it.
You might as well.
Yeah.
Good on you. So, I mean, that's got to be a lot of peace of mind for you as well, having all that income coming in, especially since it's not servicing any mortgages. I was wondering if, some of that money was going back to paying any debt down. But by the sounds of it, that's all just complete equity that you've got sitting there.
Well, the bank took care of that because when I sold the house at Wirral last year, I had a mortgage of about $100,000, and I just expected that they'd roll it over onto one of the other properties. And they said, "Oh, no, you're almost 70 years old. We can't give you a mortgage anymore. You got to pay us back." And they kept the money.
Okay.
So I lost I was expecting to have an extra $100,000 to play with, but then it's gone. It went back to the bank.
Bummer.
And I don't really want to have a mortgage now anyway.
No, absolutely. So what are your thoughts? Are you going to continue the property development route down the track?
Probably not. We're getting a little bit old for doing this. It's taking longer to do things that, stuff like that. So we're just going to sit back and enjoy.
As you should, and as you deserve to, Roxanne. Because as well, I mean, I guess obviously you've been doing this for the rental income and the money, the constant cash flow that does provide. But there's got to be some advantages now to just sitting back, especially given the Queensland market at the moment, the capital gains that are possible down the track. Is that at all something that does, play into your decision making to go, okay, I can now just afford to sit back and, ride it out a little bit?
Well, it is going to be very hard for people to buy properties that add value because they're so overpriced at the moment. It does look like they're starting to come down. But actually, that played into my thoughts back in the day when I was 2000, whatever, when I realized I couldn't afford to retire. And because I looked at how much money I could put into my superannuation every year, and then superannuation is always invested in basically the stock market. And I never trusted the stock market. I worked in Silicon Valley, Stanford University. Well, that's where I did my PhD, but also I worked there and I went through the 2002 crash. And it was like, I just don't trust that. So I put my trust in real estate.
And it's paying off?
It has definitely paid off. I mean, look at now, if you have your money in stocks and things over the last couple years, you might have gone from having a nice income to nothing.
For sure.
Half as much as you usually get.
The stability that comes with real estate is something that we do talk a lot about here at Smart Property Investment Show. And you are a testament to that and how it's actually helped you to, continue leading the life that you want to be leading, Roxanne. So thank you again so much for sharing your story today. We're going to take another break. We'll be back in just a moment with more from Dr. Roxanne Zolan.
It's time to get help. Interest rates are increasing. Inflation has hit an extraordinary 5.1%, and the chance to secure a golden egg property is getting narrower by the day. Dragan from Buyers Agency Australia has been presenting the facts and helping property investors make smarter, well-informed, educated decisions in property for years. So, what are you waiting for? Get in touch with Dragan today at www.buyersagencyaustralia.com.au. Invest with integrity.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. I am joined by Dr. Roxanne Zolan, who has, by the sounds of it, Roxanne, you've had a pretty good retirement so far, even though you're sometimes working full-time on the properties that you're developing. But by the sounds of it, it's not, the way that you saw your retirement going, but it was a necessity and it's obviously paying off, and it's been, I think, a valuable exercise for you. Is that putting words into your mouth there?
No, actually, I've become addicted. I have a hard time not doing it and holding myself back. But I do think it's time to sort of cool it and maybe, like you say, sit back and enjoy what I've got.
And you have created a pretty amazing $2 million property portfolio now. A lot of people that aren't on the property ladder yet, or, are just starting out, see that as, that's what they want their goal to be as well. So to see someone like yourself achieving it and post-retirement, a lot of that as well, will give, I think, some hope to a lot of people out there.
Well, I had a friend I did my PhD with at Stanford, and that was in the civil engineering department, interestingly enough. Her name's Jolyn Salazar Kish, and she became the property mogul of Dartmouth, near Dartmouth University in New Hampshire. And she really showed me how to do it. That I just remembered about that. She was my role model. And so when I actually started doing it, I remembered what she did. Yeah.
How important has it been for you, Roxanne, to have role models and mentors that you can, talk to, and even just having sort of a partner to be aligning with and embarking on some of these renovation projects?
Yeah, very, very important. In 2017, I did a course with Sherry Barber. She's based in Sydney. Her thing is Renovating for Profit is the name of her business or whatever. You see her on television. She does renovations. And that was really, really great. It was good. And so I think it's good for people to look around and see what they can find. And shows like yours has got to be great.
We do what we can to help people out, Roxanne, but I know you've also got something else going on in the background, and I would love to quickly touch on that before we do wind up this podcast, because we talk a lot here as well about the housing supply crisis that is going on in Australia. And, we've seen a lot of people as well talking about how renting can be, and it is a social enterprise activity. When you really think about it, you're actually providing people with a home. And I know that you're doing a little bit of work in that area. Can you talk us through that? Because I'm very interested about this.
Great. Well, I'm working with a filmmaker friend of mine on creating a documentary about housing. And when we first started talking about this, we said, well, we didn't want to do a documentary that's the current affairs type, talking about, there's a shortage of housing and ain't it awful? Because that's been done to death. And we didn't want to do the Pollyanna type of like tiny houses. Aren't they sweet? Isn't that wonderful? And this is all going to solve our housing problems. It's not, because Australia needs something in the order of 200,000 houses to be built, hopefully in the next 5 years, if we could. And like the Victorian government, they put $5 billion towards housing, and that's only going to get them 1,200 houses. How can we do this? This is an enormous challenge. And what we're doing is we're taking a constructive approach, looking at what is it really going to take to create, to solve this shortage of housing. And it's the shortage of affordable and social housing that is pushing the prices up through the whole housing market. Anyway, our documentary's working title is called Gimme Shelter. And I'm working on this with my friend, Jim Stevens. And I don't know, maybe one day we can talk about that.
Yeah, very cool, Roxanne. How did that conversation even come about in the first place?
Oh, well, Jim and I worked on another documentary. It's called Meet the Wallers. And he was filming this artist and his family over a period of 20 years.
Wow.
And he filmed all this, but he couldn't quite get it together how to turn it into a final product and market it. And then he met me, and I started coaching him on entrepreneurship and marketing. And it came out, and it launched last year. So if you want to see his film, it's called Meet the Wallers.
And the rest is history once you got involved, Roxanne.
Yeah,
very cool. How important as well is it then to you, in your role as a property developer, that you then are providing additional shelters? How much does that influence your thinking of being a landlord and a property investor?
Well, that's actually more important to me than the making money.
Mm-hmm.
I care about the value of my portfolio and I care about making money, whatever. But for example, when I sold the house at Wirral, I had a house that was worth quite a bit of money. I would never, ever, ever have any trouble renting it and so forth. But I thought I can sell this one house and buy 3 houses in the country and give more people places to live.
A very heartwarming endeavor, Roxanne. Thank you so much for what you are doing, because we hear so much about this housing supply crisis, and it's only going to get worse if people such as yourself aren't taking action on that. So thank you so much. And it's been great to chat with you today. I feel like I've learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say it's people like that you're talking to, the people who are listening here. We are the ones that are going to be able to help solve this problem, because we do what's called infill housing. We build houses on vacant blocks. We take a house that's run down and virtually not livable, and we make it livable again. So go for it. Help everybody.
To everyone who is listening along at home and know or feel like they're, contributing in the same way, please reach out. We want to hear from you. It's these stories. You're not only future-proofing your own life, you're also helping other people out there too. So, Roxanne, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely wonderful to chat. We're going to have to stay in touch because I need to hear about the progress of that last property that you're working on at the moment. So good luck with it all. And yeah, we'll stay in touch for sure.
Great. Thanks a lot, Grace. It's been fun.
To everyone who is listening along at home, at the gym, in the car, wherever you are, we hope you have enjoyed this episode. Please like or review us on whatever platform that you do listen to podcasts on. If you have any questions or think that you could be the next guest like Dr. Roxanne Zolan, don't hesitate to reach out. Just editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. That is all we have time for today, but stay up to date with all the latest news on our website. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Until next time, stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
It's safe to say the property market has been red hot over the last few years, with some of the markets we've selected in 2021 rising over 40% in a 12-month period. It's very likely that if you're a property owner, your property has gone up 20% minimum in value in the past 12 months, and you have most likely accrued sizable equity that can be recycled and extracted to build your investment portfolio. With interest rates increasing, you might be wondering where to invest to maximise capital growth and cash flow in 2022 and beyond. Well, to save you time, energy and guesswork, award-winning author and regular guest on the Smart Property Investment podcast, Paul Glossop and his team at Pure Property Investment have outlined the top 30 affordable suburbs poised for strong capital growth over the next few years with sound cash flow. Grab your free Top 30 Guide to Property Investment guide today at purepropertyinvestment.com.